All right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. We do educational videos on this channel, and today is our 10th video that we've done on Daniel Ingram and his book, Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha. And this is a great book, which is I guess, kind of like a reference book of everything that you could possibly need to know about Buddhism, other than the actual experience of meditation. You have to do that yourself, but he's trying to put everything that you need here to answer all your questions and provide you with maps of your consciousness and procedures that will help you, and guide rails that will help you along the way. And so this is really the third major subject area for this channel. All what I would consider to be cosmologies or all-encompassing theories of everything. And before this, we did almost 600 videos on the reciprocal system of theory from Dewey Bernard Larson. And before that, we studied a lot of the 300 or so videos on the ancient Egyptian tree of life. And so here we are. We are in a section where Ingram is talking about the three characteristics. And the three characteristics of all phenomena, all sense impressions and mental impressions, which is part of the training in wisdom. Okay, so there are three trainings in Buddhism: training in morality, training in concentration, training in wisdom or insight. And the latter two are trainings in meditation, two separate forms of meditation: concentration, where you're focusing on an object, and insight, where you're trying to notice everything that's going on in a sector of your sense experience. And when you do that, according to the Buddhist lore, you will investigate your sense impressions, and you will discover the three characteristics of all phenomena that are perceived. Your sense impressions and your mental impressions, they all reflect the three characteristics, which are impermanence, dissatisfactoriness, and no self. So the phenomena are transient, they come and go, they don't last, they are not endowed with the ability to satisfy you, and they are not you. And so we are right now going through the third characteristic, not self. We started that yesterday and did a couple paragraphs, but we will resume right here. So he's going to be talking about the not self, or the no self aspect of our sensate experience. Perhaps thoughts are the I. They, capital I. They may seem more like the true I than the body, but thoughts come and go too, don't they? So when thoughts disappear, why would I not also disappear at that time? Are thoughts something solid enough to assume that they are an I? Look closely and you will see that they are not. But again, no self is more profound than even this. Perhaps our emotions are the I. Emotions like anger or joy really feel like they are me, like they are mine, like they are central to my sense of identity. The simple fact that sometimes they seem like an I and at other times feel like mine, the possession of something different from those emotions, is itself a major clue. That emotions come and go is another clue. Emotions are not stable or unchanging for even 1 second. They are based on a complex pattern of images, bodily sensations, and other thoughts, patterns we can get familiar with through repeated, systematic investigation. With careful examination, we realize that the many sensations that make up emotions, while powerful and seemingly important, cannot constitute a true, unchanging self. There also seems to be something frequently called the watcher or witness, which seems to be observing all this, and perhaps this watcher is really the I in question. Strangely, the watcher cannot be found, can it? It seems to sometimes be our eyes, but sometimes not. Or it seems to be images in our head or something that is separate from them and yet watching the images in our head. Sometimes it seems to be our body, but sometimes it seems to be watching our body. Isn't it strange how we are so used to this constant redefining of ourselves that we never stop to question it? So question it. This odd sense of an unfindable watcher to which all of this is happening, yet which is seemingly separate from what is happening, which sometimes seems in control of me, and yet which sometimes seems at the mercy of reality. What is it really? What is going on here? One of my teachers wisely said, if you are observing it, then by definition it isn't you. Notice that all of what we call reality seems to be something we can observe. The hints don't get any better than this. There are some more points of theory that are very useful for insight practices and our attempts to understand what no self means. There are absolutely no sensations that can observe other sensations. Notice that your experiential reality is made up entirely of sensations. There are no special sensations that are uniquely in control of other sensations. And there are no sensations that are fundamentally split off or separable from other sensations occurring at that moment. To begin to unravel this mystery through the development of better perceptual skills is to begin to awaken. Simply put, reality with a sense of a separate watcher is delusion, and reality just as it is awakening. With systematic debunking through insight practices of the illusion of some sense of a permanent, separate, independently existing self, we learn to perceive things as they are naturally. This sort of turning our attention back to what we think of as us might be strange at first, awkward, seemingly vague, or nebulous. It can seem like we can't retrain our minds to perceive things in a totally different way, to come to different conclusions based on the same data. it may seem like there is no end to our identifications with body, thoughts, emotions, and a host of external things such as achievements, possessions, etc. As self, no limit to the tricks this process of identification can throw at us. But the tricks have their limits, and there are only so many categories of sensations. When we get good at perceiving them all as they are, including everything that typically seems to be on this side, the whole thing can flip around, and suddenly all the sensations that seem to be a self or property of that self are perceived as just sensations, natural, causal, transient, and not a self or permanent thing at all. In fact, they never were, and this can be clearly perceived by skilled practitioners. It is, in some ways, very much like the classic drawing by William Eli Hill that can be viewed two ways, either as a young woman or as an old woman. Whichever you see first tends to stick in your mind, and then it can be tricky to see the other one until someone points out the features that make up the other face. And then suddenly you see the same set of lines in a totally different way. Insight practices create effects very much like that. Some sensations, totally different implications. There is a crucial point here that I would like to draw your attention to. People often use the truth of no self to rationalize all sorts of strange and maladaptive behaviors because they understand it as justifying a nihilistic perspective. It's all illusion anyway, or I don't even ultimately or truly exist, so why bother? It absolutely is not all merely illusion. And since we do exist conventionally and conventional causality functions, bothering is a really good idea. The illusions are in how we misconceive and misperceive phenomena versus how they actually exist. It's not that the constellation labeled me or your or you, a grouping of physical and mental components, does not exist and function in some ordinary sense. It's that none of those components exist independently or acausally, which is how ignorance conceives of them. Ultimate unfindability of the components of reality in no way precludes their conventional existence. And healthy conventional existence depends, crucially, on an excellent foundation of morality. All of this can only be understood at the level that makes the difference by simple, clear, precise practice. So just keep at it. Another very important related thing, the creation of the sense of an ultimate, permanent, continuous, stable self is a process of identification, not a stable entity in and of itself. It is like a bad habit. In this case, a habitual misperception, but it doesn't exist as something that can be found beyond a shifting pattern of mere sensations and causality. This is important, as this bad habit can quickly co-opt the language of egolessness and come up with phrases as absurd as, "I will destroy my ego." But not being a stable entity that exists to begin with, it cannot be destroyed. By understanding our bare experience more clearly, the process of identification can stop. And by identification, I mean misperceiving various aspects of experience, such as body and thoughts, as being equivalent to a self. Any thoughts with I, me, my, and mine in them should be understood to be just thoughts that come and go. They are simply qualities of manifestation, like flavors of ice cream. It is not that chocolate is good and vanilla is bad. All flavors of experience are just flavors. And sometimes the flavor of the moment is I, me, mine, and the like. And even those flavors don't constitute a real I, me, or mine. So if those qualities arise, just notice them, come and go, like everything else. They never were an I, me, or mine, and never could be. Just paying attention to those flavors of experience reveals that freshness, that each one is newness, that lack of solidity and lack of continuity. I've spent much time in practice thinking the thought I or I am, and then feeling what it felt like to think that. What sensations arise and vanish in relation to that thought. To get a handle on what those rapid little sensations are and getting used to seeing the truth of them. I have found this very useful. Ajahn Sumedho writes about a similar investigation in his pithy volume called Teachings of a Buddhist Monk, page 70-71. I often hear things like, I am always identifying with things. I am always attached to things, with the implication that there is someone who is bad for doing this. Try to avoid this sort of story making and unmindful mental spinning, but be kind to yourself if it happens. The sensations that make up these thoughts are just selfless in the best of ways. Initially, in practice, people often spend much time causing certain experiences to happen and others to go away, but as we get better at this, we begin to learn that all qualities of experience, all manifestation, everything we think is us and not us, all of it is just part of the natural, causal way the universe is happening. So it is just this that must be perceived clearly, rather than be modified to suit preconceived notions of what should or should not happen. In this way, reality settles into further clarity about itself, aligns with itself, comes into its own realization of what it is and is not. At this point, you might wonder, so who or what is it that awakens? The question itself is based on a false assumption, mainly that awakening needs to belong to a permanent or separate something. Instead, we could say that it is all this transience that awakens. We don't have to sort this out all at once. We can begin with simple steps, and the rest will fall into place if we are diligent and skillful. Now that I have made the possible seem mystical and abstruse, hopefully I will also make it seem very doable. The big practical trick to understanding no self when doing insight practices is to tune in to the fact that sensations arise on their own in a natural, causal fashion, even the intention to do things. This is a formal practice instruction. This practice may sound difficult until you think about it, and then perhaps it might seem so obvious as to appear true. As to appear trite. But it is neither difficult nor trite. And understanding it again and again, moment to moment, can bang the truth into us. And when we fully get it, we will be free. In fact, just letting whatever happens happen is so easy that people can quickly get bored or distracted, thinking there must be something more than this. But this is a key part of realizing what is going on. Start and perhaps remain. Start and perhaps remain with obvious sensations, such as physical sensations. They just show up and check out, don't they? Tune into this. Allow this quality of things arising and passing on their own to show itself. Notice that whatever is observed is not me or mine. Notice this again and again and again at a rate of 1 to 10 times per second as before. That is all there is to it. See, that wasn't so hard, was it? Thoughts, the breath, and all our experiences don't quite seem to be in our control, do they? That's it. Know this moment to moment. Don't struggle too much with reality, except to break the bad habits of being lost in stories, poor concentration, and a lack of understanding of these 3 characteristics. Initially, we may have to apply some effort to build up the metacognitive skills to stay with what is happening and not get lost in thought. However, as we become better meditators, we can learn to relax into what is happening and still be present with it more naturally. Allow vibrations to show themselves and tune in to the sense that you don't have to struggle for them to arise. Reality just continues to change on its own. That's really it. Investigate this again and again until you get it. Notice that this applies to every sensation that you experience, including all the core things we think are really me, such as effort, the sensations that make up the process of attending itself, analysis, investigation, questioning, and the like. These are more profound instructions than they may initially appear. While we can direct the mind to penetrate phenomena with great precision and energy, we can also sit quietly and allow reality to just show itself as it is. Both perspectives are important and valuable, and being able to draw on each along the way can be very helpful. Said another way, we can realize that reality is already showing itself. Settle quietly into this moment and be clear and precise about it. Note well, many people will totally miss these last paragraphs and get all into pushing with everything they have and will just keep plowing on that way like mad bulldozers or rabid oxen. But really, this is about noticing that everything shows itself on its own, naturally, without any forcing on the part of anyone. So any effort finally must lead to that quiet, easy, natural understanding. There is an apparent paradox here relating to effort and surrender. In many ways, this paradox is at the heart of the spiritual life. There's much advice available on this point, but in terms of insight meditation practice, I would say that if, when meditating, you can perceive the arising and passing of phenomena clearly and consistently, that is enough effort. So allow this to show itself naturally and surrender to it. If not, or if you are lost in stories, then some teachings in subsequent chapters of this book may help. Part of your job is to figure out how gentle you can be while still perceiving things extremely clearly. This makes fine-tuning and usually in the beginning requires some overshooting. But remember that this efficiency and delicacy, this subtlety, are part of your goal. For day-to-day reality, the specifics of our experience are certainly important. But for insight into the truth of things in meditation, they largely are not. Said another way, it is neither the object of meditation, the causes of the object of meditation, nor the significance of the object of meditation, but the truth of the sensations that make up that object, which must be understood. Once you can distinguish what is mind and what is body, that's for the most part enough. So don't get lost in the dreams and stories, or the drama and stories, but know that things come and go, they don't satisfy, and they ain't you. That is the truth. It is just that simple. If you can just not get caught up in the content and know these simple, basic, and even obvious truths moment to moment, some other wordless and profound understanding may arise on its own. Alrighty, I guess we have a few more minutes here. A useful teaching conceptualizing reality as 6 sense doors: touch, taste, seeing, hearing, smelling, and thought. It may seem odd to consider thought as a sense door, but this is much more reasonable than the assumption that thoughts are a me or a mine or in complete control. Just treat thoughts as more sensations coming in, which must be understood to be impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. In this strangely useful framework, there are not even ears, eyes, skin, nose, tongue, or mind. There are just sensations with various qualities, some of which may imply these different sense doors for an instant. Bare experience is just dancing, flickering color, form, energy, and space, basically. Try to stay close to that level when you practice, the level of simple, direct, obvious, and literal. But whenever you are lost in interpretation much beyond this, that ain't insight meditation, as much as people would like it to be. Have I said this enough? As the parole officer in Raising Arizona said, okay, then. I realize that most people go into meditation looking for stability, happiness, and comfort in the face of their own existence. I have just said that I have spent many years cultivating extreme experiential instability, careful awareness of the minutiae of my suffering, and the clear perception that I don't even exist as a separate or continuous entity. Why this would be a good idea is a very complex topic that I will try to deal with later. But I can honestly say that these practices are without doubt the sanest thing I have ever done in my life. One more little carrot. It is rightly said that to deeply understand any two of the characteristics simultaneously is to understand the third. And this understanding is enough to cause immediate first awakening. Okay, that is the end of that section. And the next section, number 6, is called The 5 Spiritual Faculties. And we will start that out tomorrow when we resume. Thanks for tuning in today, and have a great day.